Hey everybody. All right, here we go. Diagon Alley Part 3. We had two shorter videos because, I was playing around. I've decided my phone looks and sounds much better. So here we are today. So they were going into Gringotts the bank. The bank's run by goblins. Goblins are a little scary. And they also have all these warnings, like if you try to steal from them, you're dead. So I'd be a little nervous about going in there. Okay. A pair of goblins bowed at them through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins in brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall. That didn't flow right. So let me try this one again. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall. That sounded much better. And yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these doors. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. "Mornin'," said Hagrid to a free goblin. "We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe." "You have his key, sir?" "Got it here somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on their right weighing a pile of rubies that were as big as glowing coals. "I've got to change my position. I'm not very comfortable in this chair." Oh, that's much better. Okay, I needed to sit crisscross applesauce. Hands not in my lap, they're on my book. Okay. Rubies as big as glowing coals. Oh my goodness, that's just amazing. "Got it," said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. "That seems to be in order. And I've got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid very importantly, throwing out his chest. "It's about the you-know-what in Vault 713. The goblin read the letter very carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "I will have someone take you down to both vaults. Griphook!" Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all of the dog biscuits back inside of his pocket, he and Harry followed Griphook toward one of the doors leading off the hall. Dog biscuits is another word for dog treats. So they were old and moldy, and I bet they stunk really bad. That's my clue, because the goblin wrinkled up his nose. And you do that when something stinks. And something that's moldy usually stinks. So, I'm making an inference there about those moldy dog treats smelling very bad. All right. "What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? Harry asked. "Can't tell you that," said Hagrid mysteriously. "Very secret Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me more than my job's worth to tell you that." Griphook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downward, and there were little railway tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks toward them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and they were off. At first they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, left, middle, fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't even steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage and twisted around to see if it was a dragon. But it was too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and the floor. Those are those things that kind of they look like icicles coming down, or they look like little piles of, when we make a drip sandcastle, but it's really made out of mineral deposits from millions of years in a cave. So it's hanging down and going up. So if you've ever been somewhere to a cave that has stalactites and stalagmites, that's hard to say. That's what some of these passageways look like. You're deep underground. Now I gotta find my spot here. There we go. I never know, Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. What's the difference between a stalactite and a stalagmite? Stalagmite's got an M in it, said Hagrid. And don't ask me questions just now. I think I'm going to be sick. I'm glad I told you what they were. And I really didn't, because I don't know which one's up and which one's down. I would have to look. You knew that once upon a time, but it's kind of flittered out of my brain. Hagrid did look green, and when the cart stopped at the last... Trying to say stalactite and stalagmite has my tongue all twisted up, so I got to fix it. All right. Hagrid did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of golden coins, columns of silver, heaps of the little bronze nuts. All yours, smiled Hagrid. All Harry's? It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep? And all this time, there had been a small fortune belonging to him buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into a bag. The gold ones are galleons, he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon, and 29 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough. They definitely don't follow the unit of 10. No. Right. Well, this should be enough for a couple of terms, and we'll keep the rest safe for you. He turned to Griphook. Vault 713 now, please, and can we go a little more slowly? 1 speed only, said Griphook. They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled around tight corners. They went rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leaned over the side to try to see what was down at the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned, "Oh!" and pulled him back by the scruff of the neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. Stand back, said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with his long fingers, and it simply melted away. If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. How often do you check to see if anyone's inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top-secret vault. Harry was sure, and he leaned forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but he knew better than to ask. Come on, back in this infernal cart. Don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid. Oof. I bet he was getting, car sick, but seasick, because it's like a roller coaster. Okay. One wild cart ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside of Gringotts. Harry didn't know where to run first now that he had a whole bag full of money. He didn't know how many galleons there were to a pound to know that he was holding more money than he'd ever had in his life. More money than even Dudley had ever had. Might as well get your uniform, said Hagrid, nodding toward Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off for a pick-me-up at the Leaky Cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts. He did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shop alone, feeling very nervous. Madame Malkin was a squat, smiling witch dressed all in mauve. That's like that pretty dark pink color. Not bright pink, not neon, but kind of... I really don't wear pink, so I can't say anything I usually wear. Sorry. Hogwarts, dear, she said when Harry started to speak. Got the lot here. Another young man being fitted up right now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool, while a second witch pinned up his long black robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a long robe over his head, and began to pin it to the right length. Hello, said the boy. Hogwarts, too? Yes, said Harry. My father's next door buying my books, and my mother's up the street looking at wands, said the boy. He had a bored, drawling tone. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully Father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow. Harry was strongly reminded of Dudley. Oh, see, he's making a person-to-person connection just from this one little thing that this new character has said. He reminds Harry of Dudley. Now, that's not a good thing. No. Dudley's a bully. He's mean and nasty. He's selfish. He's manipulative. He tells his parents what to do. And right away, Harry's like, this kid is just like Dudley. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see what he does. Have you got your own broom? The boy went on. No, said Harry. Play Quidditch at all? No, said Harry again, wondering what on earth Quidditch could be. I do. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet? No, said Harry, feeling more stupid by the minute. Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin. All of our family have been. Imagine being a Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you? Said Harry, wishing he could say something a bit more interesting. I say, look at that man, said the boy suddenly, nodding toward the front window. Hagrid was standing there, grinning at Harry and pointing at 2 large ice creams to show that he couldn't come in. That's Hagrid, said Harry, pleased to know something that the boy didn't. He works at Hogwarts. Oh, said the boy. I've heard of him. He's sort of a servant, isn't he? He's the gamekeeper, said Harry. He was liking the boy less and less every single second. Yes, exactly. I've heard that he's sort of a savage. Lives in a hut on the school grounds, and every now and then, when he gets drunk, he tries to do magic and ends up setting fire to his bed. I think he's brilliant, said Harry coldly. Do you? Said the boy with a slight sneer. Why is he with you? Where are your parents? They're dead, Harry said shortly. He didn't feel like much going into the matter with this boy. Oh, sorry, said the boy, not sounding sorry at all. But they were our kind, weren't they? They were a witch and wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, you know. They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter. Imagine. I think they should just keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway? But before Harry could answer, Madame Malkin said, You're all done, my dear. And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to that boy, hopped down from the footstool. Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose, said the drawing boy. Harry was rather quiet as he ate the ice cream Hagrid had brought him, chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. What's up? Said Hagrid. Nothing, Harry lied. They stopped to buy parchment and quills. Harry cheered up a bit when he found a bottle of ink that changed color as you wrote. When they left the shop, he said, Hagrid, what's Quidditch? Blimey, Harry, I keep forgetting how little you know, not knowing about Quidditch. Don't make me feel worse, said Harry. He told Hagrid about the pale boy in Madame Malkin's. And he said some people from Muggle families shouldn't even be allowed in. You're not from a Muggle family. If he'd known who you were. He's grown up knowing your name if his parents are wizarding folk. You saw that everybody in the Leaky Cauldron, what they were like when they saw you. Anyway, what does he know about it? Some of the best folk I ever knew were the ones with magic in them and a long line of muggles. Look at your mom. Look what she had for a sister. So what is Quidditch? It's our sport, wizard sport. It's like the soccer of the muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch. Played up in the air on broomsticks, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules. What are Slytherin and Hufflepuff? Schoolhouses, there's 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily. Better Hufflepuff than Slytherin, said Hagrid darkly. There's not a single witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin. You know who was one. You know who was at Hogwarts? Years and years ago, said Hagrid. They bought Harry's school books in a shop called Flourish and Bots, where the shelves were stacked to the ceiling with books as large as paving stones bound in leather, books the size of postage stamps covered in silk, books full of peculiar symbols, and a few books with nothing in them at all. Even Dudley, who never read anything, would have been wild to get his hands on some of these. Hagrid almost had to drag Harry away from curses and counter curses, bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges, hair loss, jelly legs, tongue tying, and much, much more by Professor Vindicus Viridian. I was trying to find out how to curse Dudley. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world except in very special circumstances, said Hagrid. And anyway, you couldn't work any of those curses yet. You'll need a lot more study before you get to that level. Hagrid wouldn't let Harry buy a solid gold cauldron either. It says pewter on your list. But they got a nice set of scales for weighing potion ingredients and a collapsible brass telescope. When they visited the apothecary, which was fascinating enough to make up for its horrible smell, a mixture of bad eggs and rotted cabbages. See, there's that senses. It's interesting to look at. She gave us a good description of all the books in the bookstore, and now we know that the apothecary stinks, but it's so interesting it makes up for the horrible smell. And the smell is like bad eggs and rotted cabbages. Ugh. Barrels of slimy stuff stood on the floor. Jars of herbs, dried roots, and bright powders lined the walls. Bundles of feathers, strings of fangs, and snarled claws hung from the ceiling. While Hagrid asked the man behind the counter for a supply of some basic potion ingredients for Harry himself examined silver unicorn horns at 21 galleons each and minuscule glittery black beetle eyes, 5 nuts a scoop. Outside the apothecary, Hagrid checked Harry's list again. Just your wand left. Oh yeah, and I still haven't gotten you a birthday present. Harry felt himself go red. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Tell you what, I'll get your animal. Not a toad. Toads went out of fashion years ago. You'd be laughed at. And I don't like cats because they make me sneeze. I'll get you an owl. All the kids want owls, and they're dead useful. Carry your mail and everything. 20 minutes later, they left Aelop's Owl Emporium, which had been dark and full of rustling and flickering jewel-bright eyes. Harry now carried a large cage that had held a beautiful snowy owl, fast asleep with her head under her wing. He couldn't stop stammering his thanks, sounding just like Professor Quirrell. Don't mention it, said Hagrid gruffly. Don't expect you've had a lot of presents from them Dursleys. Just Ollivanders left now, the only place for wands, Ollivanders, and you gotta have the best wand. A magic wand. This was what Harry had really been looking forward to. And boys and girls, I know that I said that this chapter was going to take 3 times, but it's going to take 4 because we're on page 82 and we still have to get to page 87. So think about this awesome experience. He's going through these really cool places. We have all this visual imagery. My mental movie is like rocking right now because I see all these really cool shops, these things that Harry has never seen before, and he's seeing them for the first time, and Hagrid's explaining them to him, and he's smelling them, and he's touching the things, and oh, it's just interesting. And now he gets to get a magic wand. I want a magic wand. One day, I'm going to get one from like Universal or in the mail, and I'm going to use it to write on the smartboard like a pen. Because that way it'll be magic, even when my smartboard's not so smart. Anyway, we will finish Diagon Alley tomorrow. See you soon.